And good afternoon again, everybody. This is Doug Morollet, the freelance teacher, freelanceteacher.com. This is the Freelance Teacher podcast. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the ride sharing stuff that I'd like to wrap up with in terms of that chapter. I may drive again in the summer, but I'm not sure yet. I have a lot of tutoring and actual freelance teacher type stuff going on in terms of I have cover letters coming in and reports and things like that. People need help with their writing, and that is taking precedence as it is more lucrative than rideshare driving. So I want to talk to you about the difference in the rideshare space between the two. There are three partners, I believe, that Uber mentions regularly when they talk to you about renting a vehicle: Tower Rental and American Lease. And I had good experiences with both overall. If I had to say what happened, let's go look at American Lease first. Both have locations in the Bronx, and I live in the Bronx, so that was useful to me, and not having to go to Long Island City and Queens was nice. So that was, in terms of convenience, they were both convenient. American Lease is an extremely well-run business organization. When you go to the little trailer, it's a nondescript gas station on the corner, and the kind of headquarters is in one of those, it looks like one of those temporary trailers. And when you go in, there are 4 to 6, maybe even 7 women working the desks. And there are a row of chairs of people waiting. And it is busy. Let me tell you, I think maybe we were all in the wrong business because this place was humming. But what made American Lease stand out was there were 2 or 3 things that made it stand out. Very businesslike. And you can't, if you come in, you won't stand in the front if all the seats are filled and it just looks like a place that you want to leave because you're never going to get seen. Not the case. One of the women working the front will either ask you from her chair if you need help, or get up and ask you directly, like walk up to you and say, what do you need? Something like that. These people have their act together, and it's extremely efficient. So the sign-up process with American Lease was pretty solid. I spoke with one of the women first and gave her my information, and then I had to go back. So I went for that first time, and they had to run your paperwork. This is standard at all of the places, as far as I can tell. Well, let me rephrase. When you first rent a car for ride sharing, that's the standard operating procedure, because I didn't have to go through all that with Tower because I had already rented a vehicle. So I got back to American Lease after they had said everything is good and we have a car for you. And I went there and signed the paperwork. I was there for maybe an hour. And so the 2 visits to American Lease combined, maybe a total of 2 hours combined, right? So the first one I was there, got looked at, spoke with the woman. Second one I got there, and they said they had something for me. I signed the paperwork. They had a 2015 Toyota Camry ready to go, and that was the first 2 weeks of my driving. The rate with them was $375, but remember, a week. Remember, that was the first 2 weeks with all the Uber bonuses. So like my previous video, I did well that first 2 weeks because you get the right number of rides with Uber early, and they throw money at you. And I dropped off. Here's one of the good things as well about American Lease is that I emailed the person with whom I signed up. So they have a specific email that you have to give them an advance warning of when you're returning your car. I either didn't see it, I either wasn't listening to the guy when he told me, but I do remember him saying you have to email before you return the vehicle. I emailed that guy, did not get a response the first time, emailed him again, said, look, I'm coming on Tuesday or whatever it was, and then I didn't get a response, so I figured, all right, I guess that's just how it works. And I came with the car. Well, they were surprised to see me, to say the least, because I hadn't emailed, so they talked about it amongst themselves and then just said, okay, thank you for returning the car. no fees. They didn't say, oh, you didn't return, there's a $50 fee because you have to email this. And I looked back on the contract, and that email address was circled, the email address they had said to send a message to. And I guess I just missed it. So, but they were good about it. They just took the car back and said thanks, and so be it. You know, they don't know I have a YouTube channel. They don't know that anybody cares or knows or anything. They just did it right and said, all right, we have our car back. It's in fine shape. I returned the keys, and it's all good. And so American Lease, I give high marks, very businesslike, no frills, and workmanlike people there getting things done. Tower Lease was also overall good. There was one flaw in the tower world, and that was they seemed understaffed. So I went to Tower again. It's not that far away from American Lease, and so it's in the Yankee Stadium area, 170th or so, just north of alongside the 4 train, generally 170th or so. And so I was at Tower Lease the first time and let them know I was ready to rent, and they had a backlog. They didn't have a car available. I said, we'll call you. So I went to Tower Lease to rent, and I sat for a while. I was there for about an hour, and I signed up in the front, and then the person, after about half an hour, the guy who does the sign-ups and the rentals, asked if I was there to see him. I said yes, and he was apparently the only one, so he was running around like a chicken with his head cut off, doing good work, being professional, being polite, but sitting an hour at American Lease, not happening. At Tower, that's what happened, and that was a day. I actually had stuff on my schedule later. I didn't expect to be there that long, and I had to take Metro North from Yankee Stadium up to the house, and so that was one negative that was there. And also, the guy had assumed that I was a new renter, so I had to rent. Like I mentioned in the other video, it was $425 a month. I'm sorry, $425 a week. My weekly rate was much higher for my next 2 weeks, and that's not economical. That's not happening, as we've mentioned before on this channel. Returning at Tower was fantastic. Because they were jammed, right there again. Someone send me a message below and say, look, let's rent cars, because somebody's got the right idea. And so they're just packed. So they got a younger person I didn't know came out and just checked out the car. Said, look, can you stay with it, because it's not parked legally for now. I'll be out with the paperwork and the clipboard. And he came out 10 minutes later, paperwork, clipboard, looked over the car, signed off on it, and I left. All right, and this time I had emailed the right email address to Tower, the one I had forgotten with American, and boom, done. So the exit procedure at Tower was ridiculously fast, faster than at American Lease. So overall, pretty good, but these are my experiences with the two of them. Those are the Uber partners that they recommend that you work with when you're first at Uber signing up, American Lease and Tower. They both, I believe, have locations in Long Island City. I used the locations in the Bronx, and overall things okay. Little bit understaffed at Tower, so it was a little slower. But I'll tell you what, I went to Tower, dropped off that car. I was in and out of there, and it might have been 25 minutes, maybe. And that was a nice thing to have at the end of the day. When I dropped that thing off, I just signed it and got out. So that's about it. So that's my ride sharing section of this. I'll comment on periodically, I guess, but for now I'm taking a break because I have tutoring and the freelanceteacher.com online editing, writing help, things like that are picking up, and I gotta admit it's more lucrative than the ride sharing stuff. But I'll be back and talk about it more. So comment below. I get great information from comments, and if people recommend other channels for the ride sharing from regular people, feel free. I'll check them out, And that group sourcing stuff works. Great information. Thanks. Talk to you guys later. This is Doug Marola, thefreelanceteacher.com. Talk to you next time.